Have you ever really stopped to think about how we learn? We have this image of a lone genius, locked away, figuring everything out by themselves. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? What if our biggest breakthroughs, our greatest leaps in understanding actually happened together? Well, today we're going to dive into the world-changing ideas of a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky and his theory of social constructivism.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle why learning is a team sport. Then, we'll find the absolute sweet spot for growth. After that, we'll meet your personal learning support system. We'll see how this all plays out in a real classroom, and finally, we'll get to the one big idea that might just change how you think about, well, thinking.
Okay, let's get right to it. First things first, we need to bust a huge myth about learning. This idea that we do it all on our own.
Seriously, think about it. The last time you tried to learn something new, maybe it was a new language, a piece of software, or even just a new recipe. Did you really do it in a vacuum, or did you watch a video, ask a friend, or read a guide? For Vygotsky, the answer was a no-brainer. Learning is never a solo sport.
And his answer to that question is this incredible idea called social constructivism. The core of it is that knowledge isn't some file you just download into your brain. No, it's something we actually build together. We co-construct it through every chat, every group project, every single interaction we have.
And this is deeper than just asking for help. Vygotsky believed that the way we think, our very consciousness, is shaped by our conversations. The language we use and the culture we're part of, they aren't just background noise. They're the actual tools we use to build our minds. Simply put, we think because we talk.
Okay, so if learning is a social thing, how do we make it work? How do we make it as effective as possible? Well, that leads us to one of Vygotsky's most brilliant concepts, the hunt for the learning sweet spot.
He called it the zone of proximal development, or just the ZPD. And it's such a simple but powerful idea. The ZPD isn't about what you can already do easily, and it's not about what's totally impossible for you. It's that magical space right in between, the stuff you can almost do, but you need just a little bit of help to get there. Picture it like this. On one side, you've got all the things you've already mastered. On the other side, you've got the stuff you can do with a little guidance. That gap in the middle, that's the ZPD. That's where the magic happens. It's the zone where you stretch yourself, but you don't break. So for any teacher, any mentor, any parent, heck, even for yourself, the goal is to live in that sweet spot. You want to be constantly pushing just past what's comfortable, but always with enough support to make sure that push leads to success, not frustration. Which brings up a really important question. What exactly is that support? Vygotsky breaks it down into two key ideas that form our personal learning support system.
First up, you need a more knowledgeable other, or an MKO. Now that sounds super academic, but it's really simple. An MKO is literally anyone who knows more about a task than you do. Of course, it could be a teacher, but it could also be your friend who's a chapter ahead of you, your older sibling, or even a really clear YouTube tutorial. It's just the source of the help.
So what does that MKO do? They provide something called scaffolding. And this is my favorite metaphor. Think about scaffolding on a building. It's a temporary structure that lets workers reach higher than they could on their own. That's exactly what this is. It's giving hints, breaking a problem into smaller steps, or showing an example. It's basically like training wheels for your brain.
So you can see how this works. First, the expert, the MKO, shows you how it's done. Then you give it a try, but with them right there to help. As you get better and more confident, they start to pull back that support, piece by piece, until, all of a sudden, you realize you can do it all by yourself. The scaffolding comes down, and you're left standing taller than you were before.
Right. This all sounds fantastic in theory, doesn't it? But what does it actually look like when you put it into practice? Let's step inside a Vygotskyan classroom.
Vygotsky's ideas totally flip the script on traditional education. Instead of a teacher just standing at the front of the room lecturing, they become more of a guide, a facilitator. Learning becomes a team activity, full of group work and collaboration. And get this, students teach each other, because your friend can absolutely be your MKO. It's all about creating an environment where knowledge is built together.
And that brings us to the most powerful, most mind-bending part of this whole theory. Let's boil everything we've talked about down to one huge takeaway.
This quote right here is the key to everything. Vygotsky said that every complex thought we have appears twice. First, it appears out in the world, in a social setting, between people. And only after that does it appear inside our own head, as an individual thought. Think about that. The conversations we have out there become the thoughts we have in here.
So what does this really mean? It means we are not just empty vessels waiting to be filled with information. We are active builders. We are co-creators of knowledge. Every idea you've ever had was probably sparked or sharpened by a conversation. Learning isn't about receiving information. It's about building it together.
And so I'll leave you with this question. Knowing that your mind is fundamentally social, that your potential is unlocked not in isolation but in collaboration, how does that change the way you look at learning? How does it change the way you approach teaching, helping others, and even your own journey of growth?